Hello, hello, loves. This is Rain, and we are here for another beautiful episode of Moments of Mindfulness. I am excited to do this. I have to say thank you to everyone who's tuning in and listening to this podcast, who has been sharing it with friends and family. It's growing, the downloads are growing. And so thank you. Thank you. It doesn't do any good to talk if nobody's listening. So I am excited to have listeners and supporters, and just know that you guys are a big part of why I get up to do this daily. Now, having said that, today I am going to have a shorter episode, but very powerful just the same. But I want to talk about integrating sacred knowledge into your regular mundane life. Um, I cannot think of anything I'm asked more by people who are just opening the door to spirituality, independent of community or church or, whatever system they may have come from. And so they all want to know, how do I integrate all these things? There's so many things in spirituality. So how do I integrate these things into my actual life? How does sacred knowledge apply to life today? When I was in church, and this is about the time I had started to study to become a preacher, I used to find myself trying to figure out how a lot of the scriptures apply to real life today, because the reality is life has changed tremendously since the 1600s, when the King James Bible was created. And before then, when a lot of these books were actually written, life is so different. And some of the things just didn't fit. It just did not apply. Most things you could find a way to apply, but some things you couldn't. The beauty of being in independent spirituality, what I've found since I've been here, is that every single thing can be applied to your life without a lot of rigmarole, right? So it's not complicated to apply sacred knowledge to your life. A couple of things that I want to talk about. I have a class at divinityacademy.com called Foundations of Mysticism. A quick overview, and to tie it in with what we're talking about today. A quick overview of mysticism is a deeper dive into who you are. The more you know about yourself, the better your decision making becomes, the better your life is. Across the board, across the board. So the foundations of mysticism, the first was meditation. And we talked about trance state and grounding and different things like that in this class. But meditation is so important. Meditation is a big part of how you become mindful in the first place, moments of mindfulness, right? And so meditation is quality time spent knowing yourself, getting to know yourself. It's not just spent with yourself. Oh, I'm just sitting here. It is you sitting there present with yourself, listening to your thoughts, feeling your own energy, becoming consciously aware of the intricacies of your own heart and mind and paradigms or belief systems, right? So meditation helps you to dig in deeper, to tunnel down some levels, to get into where the power actually lies. How many times have we made decisions and we don't even know what we were thinking? It's like, what the heck was I thinking? Why would I even do that? I mean, it's often that most people shock themselves because we don't know where half of the stuff we do or think or feel is even coming from, because we haven't tunneled in deep enough to figure that out. On the other hand, a person who's outside of us looking at us, if they have awareness of psychology, of consciousness, of the ego, whatever, they can a lot of times suss it right out. They don't have to go through the complications of all these different feelings and all the different things that happen to me just until I get to the root or the foundation. You judge a tree by the fruit it bears. All of our actions are telling the truth about us at all times. Even the ones that we think we're doing for manipulative reasons. Even that is telling the truth about us. It's telling the truth about us. Listen, guys, and this is just to make that point, and then I'm going to digress. I was having a conversation with a girl. She was feeling pretty down about who she is and all the things she's done. And she was a big time marketing person for a long time. She was tearing up those network marketing companies. She had 6-figure classes once a month, and she was at the top of her game. But she talked about how she did a lot of giving to manipulate people to make them feel um, more endearing toward her, more trusting toward her, and all these kind of things. And she was in tears while she was breaking down, telling me how she had done so much giving, but none of it ever came from her heart. It was all business, and she had done a lot of good deeds, but not from a good place. She was convinced. She was convinced. I listened to her say that, and I was smiling. And finally, she asked me why I was smiling. And I told her, I said, good deeds can only come from a good place. Good only comes from good. Good doesn't come from bad, it comes from good, right? And from a perspective, we just throw bad away. Now, I'm going to share with you guys what I share with her, and then we're going to get right back on topic. I told her, I said, people manipulate people every day. Very few of them do it through good deeds that took hours and hours and days and weeks and months of their time. You gave with an expectation or a hope that this would build your business. How is that evil, wicked, or wrong? Some people want their business built and they're not going to give anything. You taught and you showed up because you wanted the people to feel enduring toward you. But you were doing exactly what you're supposed to do if you want to be loved and trusted. And I asked her, I said, were you lying to people though? She was like, no. Okay. Did you help anybody? Like, was the system you were selling beneficial? Was it beneficial? Yes. She was like, I helped a lot of people get off of assistance and buy houses and different things like that. Their income went way up, 5 figures, 6 figures. I don't understand what we're talking about. That's what I told her. Because the reality is, and this is just truth, everything that we do comes from something inside of us. Even if in your mind you're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go on and give this and get that and get this, for whatever reason. Listen, guys, I gave away a car one year. Now, let me tell you this. When I first decided I was going to give away a car, I was feeling, people had kept calling me like the Black Oprah, and I was feeling that, and I was thinking about what I know about Oprah, and I was like, she was always giving away cars. I'm going to do it. It was probably a little pride, probably a little ego. It was super exciting. I couldn't wait to do it. I didn't know what was going to come from it, but I knew it was going to grow my business. And then the excitement of seeing someone get a whole car they don't have to pay for. And I was in it, right? And somebody else could say, well, if you didn't do it for altruistic purposes, it doesn't count. People may say that. The universe doesn't say that. Your soul does not testify against you like that. It was something in me that wanted to be as generous as Oprah, as people kept comparing me to her. I wanted to be that generous. I've always been generous anyway. I love and get a lot of satisfaction out of doing stuff for people that they don't expect while telling them I don't want nothing from them in return. Because I remember what it's like to feel that the first time anybody ever done something for me without wanting anything in return. I like recreating that feeling as often as I can. Your motives are your motives. but they all come from what's true about you and what's true with you. Now, meditation helps you to learn your own truth. And once you learn your own truth, it's not that you got to change it all. Some things you're going to have to adjust. Some things you're going to have to alchemize. But most things are fine just as is. Because now that you become aware of it, you understand where to put it. Before, you were just out here, a ball of confused energetic sparks doing whatever spark hit you the hardest. Now you're tunneling into yourself to become conscious of all these firing pieces. You know what every piston is firing at and what it touches, what it hits, what it triggers, so that you can control and play your own tune versus letting life play you like a tune. Meditation is meant to be a daily activity. It doesn't always have to be sitting in position and doing all that. You could do that as often as you can. But all you really have to do is stop. There are times where I meditate while I'm driving. There are times where I just sit on the side of my bed and I just find myself in a meditative state. There are times where I'm in dead centers hanging out with my friends and all that kind of stuff, and we're having conversations and a need just hits and I quieten down and I go within. Meditation is a journey within. I always tell people when they start, try to start with 10 minutes, then take yourself up the next week to 15, and then the next week to 20, the next week to 30, and then the next week to 45, and then the final week to an hour, and get to a place. And I'm gonna tell you, you'll be at an hour way before then, but just creating that stepping stone helps. And you will get to a place where you could do a whole hour within yourself. And once you're able to maintain an hour meditation multiple days in a row, what you will find is your body will learn that frequency, right? And you'll be able to move through your day in that meditative state, in that conscious, because that's the point of meditation, not to have to go somewhere to escape everything, but to teach your body how to live consciously aware of the subconscious layers of who you are. Okay? Now, another part of sacred knowledge, because I can go on and on and on with meditation, I really have to stop myself every time. But another part of sacred knowledge that is easy to apply to your life is nature awareness. Now, whether you want to call it witchcraft or whether you want to call it energetic manipulation, you could just call it nature alignment, aligning with nature, nature awareness. Sinking into a more harmonious frequency with the world around you so that you benefit from this world instead of being drained by it. Now, the truth of the matter is that most of us are anti-nature, even when we think we are so natural. We can garden and we can plant and we can, support the Arbor Foundation and get some more trees planted. We can picket for against deforestation, and we can do a lot of things, right? We can recycle. We can do as much as we can to lower uh, our footprint on this planet. And I think it's important that all of us do the parts that we can do when we can. I'm not militant about it. I got so much room for improvement. I'm not even here to tell you to do better. But this is what I want to make you aware of. Even with all of that, the nature of humanity can be anti-natural, like the natural world. And so when you think about the books we read, the clothes we wear, the food we eat, whether it is a plant or an animal. See, people who elevate animal consciousness over plant consciousness, they still missing the point. All of it's energy, right? And so there are trees that are endangered species because we love them so much and they're so powerful. The, the Palo Santo stick comes from trees that are endangered. And we're cutting them and chopping them down for profit faster than we can plant them and grow them. And they don't grow, they don't mature quickly. And so there's a lot of different ways and places where we can make this argument. So my point is, when I talk about nature awareness, aligning with nature and living in a more harmonious way, I'm talking about being in a position where you can feel the frequency of that which is around you, right? You know that is that spring is coming because you can feel it, just like the trees outside feel it. And so you begin to prepare your gardens and you do your things and you start to, and for that matter, the garden of your heart and your mind, and you start to birth new ideas because this is the season where new things can be planted and will grow. Throughout the summer, you're in full bloom and you're enjoying the power of that which was planted in the spring. And then when it comes autumn, it's time for harvest. And then when it comes winter, you know it's time for rest. And you sink into that kind of pattern and you begin to become aware of moon phases. And you know that the new moon is a new opportunity to start manifesting all types of things. And so you prepare things for the new moon and you move it through the moon cycles as it waxes stronger. And then when they get to full moon, it's time for you to harness and pull down and also to rid whatever things have manifested that you don't necessarily want. The full moon brings everything into full light and then it begins to die away and you start to release things and then you hit the new moon and you see what I mean? And so these things are integrated by us choosing when we will behave certain ways, when we will engage in certain things. One of my mentors, students who had been with him longer than I had, she only would start new relationships in the spring. She didn't start them in any other season. She only would get married in the spring. These are the things that she has set for herself. And so, and this she did as a young woman in her 20s. Well, when she got married, she stayed married until that guy passed. They got married in the spring, had a happy relationship. She testifies to the importance of being mindful of the energy all around you. See, if you can feel energy that's around you and you know the general aspect of what that energy is, you don't have to fight so hard to learn theories like transmutation and all that kind of stuff. And I do teach that at Divinity Academy. Don't get me wrong. You still, if you are serious about becoming a spiritual practitioner or just real serious about your life, you can take those classes. But otherwise, just in regular mundane life, as someone with a career or a business and a husband or a wife and children and a life that you want to live and enjoy, just look around you. When it's raining, there's a washing. When the sun is shining, there's infusions of joy and happiness. Starting to give personal meaning to things. It's just like going to an art museum. Some people just see scribble scrabble. That's all I used to see back when my heart was not healed and I was young and I was full of damage. I couldn't appreciate art because it didn't mean anything to my life. My life was chaotic and this couldn't do anything for it. But then as you live and you learn and you grow and you heal, you look at art and you start to see things like you find yourself asking, like, what was she thinking? Even though you know this is somebody's depiction, what was the thought that he had when he painted her face this way, or she had? That digging down, that tunneling down helps you to make and create better relationships, um, to heal current relationships that may possibly be strained. That tunneling down helps you to be a better parent. It helps you to know when your child needs some discipline and know when your child needs some freedom because This is a personal expression outside of yourself. Is that your child is not meant to be a second you. This is a whole new being you've created, and they have to find their way. So by you tunneling into yourself and tunneling into nature, and then opening the door to read the energy of all things around you, because that's not some process you got to sit with some kind of divinatory tool to do. The goal is that it becomes natural for you. And again, meditation is the foundation of all of that. The more you meditate, the more aware you become of energy. What feels good when it approaches, what feels stressful, what feels constricting, what feels scary, what feels exciting, what's energizing, what's draining. You start to be aware of that. And then after a minute, you can identify where you get those things at in your society, in your life. And as you become aware of that, you're able to disconnect from things that make your life harder than it has to be unnecessarily. Now, the last one I want to mention, because I get this all the time, how do I use sacred geometry as just a regular person? Sacred geometry, as part of sacred science, talks about the foundation of all that is. The nature of the universe is fractal. It's fractal. So everything is a different face, size, um, interpretation of the one thing. No matter how small of a snowflake you break off, under a microscope, the pattern remains the same. Every little piece is the same components of all the bigger pieces. It seems hard to wrap your mind around it, but that's the nature of this universe we live in. It's fractal, and it's mirrors. Okay. So sacred geometry helps you to see that so that you can understand that. And the way you work that into the primary way you work that into your daily mundane life is to realize that everything outside of you is a mirror of some sort to the all, just like you are. That we are in our own bodies, in our own lives, fully integrated beings, and we're a part of a fully integrated being, meaning the all or the universe or whatever you call it, or however you feel most comfortable approaching it. You are a part of that like everybody else. Everybody has their function, everybody has their thought that led them into becoming a thing that we can all tangibly see. And from that place, you typically love and respect all people equally, no matter how much money they have, no matter how educated they are or not, no matter how they present. That is how sacred geometry changed my life. That, I mean, in a mundane way. Of course, I use it in all the other things that I do. But for a mundane person, that was the most significant pull out for sacred geometry for me, is that me and you are the same. We're not, we don't look the same, we don't have the same function. But if you break us down to the lowest component, that fractal nature shows up. And so from that place, I operate with the respect for every other mathematical component of this mathematical construct called the universe, as much as I can. I don't choose to operate in a chaotic way against anyone. They have to bring that to me. They have to, because I'm not gonna take it anywhere. That's just not for me, every person that I see the potential that that person could be the savior of the next generation. I don't know. We don't ever know. We never really know. And so there's that respect. The other thing about sacred geometry that applies to your life is that it helps you become aware of your own patterns. There is a pattern as random as as random as life can feel and as random as you might think you are, there is a pattern to what feels like a good and beneficial season, what isn't, what you have a numerical system attached to your being. Sacred geometry helps you discover it. So let's look at flower of life, seed of life, Metatron's cube, just all of the different components of that geometry. Matter of fact, the spiral of life, and for that matter, all of them points to something different. But when you look at them, they help you, especially as meditative companions. So having sacred geometry on your walls in your meditative space is really powerful. Focusing in on it and when you're doing a focused meditation, very powerful as well. But when you look at it, you start to notice that there's always a counterbalance in anything with points. Even the pyramid, which a lot of people miss, that points up, there are other points at the bottom. A true pyramid has 4 points at the bottom and 1 point at the top. There's always a counterbalance, always, because the nature of the universe. The energy of opposites. Opposites are what balance each other out and keep each other. Opposites is what keep each other in creation, in existence. Love only exists because of hate. Or you could say hate only exists because of love. If you remove one, the other goes with it because there becomes no reason to differentiate anymore. We have roses and tulips and daisies and carnations because they're all different. There's a need to differentiate. And so this is deep, and I'm going to leave you guys with this, but I want you guys to understand this. Your name is Janice, Mary, Melissa, Nicole, William, whatever it is. Your name is what it is because there's a need to differentiate you from all the others. That's not a bad thing, right? You have a specific focus. There was a specific thought that led to you being here. But the way that you see and begin to understand how precious you are, you have to, from a mathematical standpoint, understand that it's the same with every person, with every other person around you. Whether they take the journey or not is the issue. Not that their inherent value to the universal construct is void. Sacred knowledge changes how you live your life. It changes how you perceive and approach other people until it impacts your heart and your mind about yourself. It won't be able to bleed out. But once it impacts your heart and your mind, and you begin to understand it about yourself, it will bleed over and you'll begin to understand it about others. Sacred knowledge changes every relationship you have. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say make them all better. Some of them it make them possible because two can't walk together if they're not agreed. And that's what it is. But here's the reality. If I got to stay a weekend, less consciously aware version of myself to stay friends or family with you, was that relationship worth it? Of course not. Of course not. Sacred knowledge is going to shift how you think about everything. As you study sacred geometry and you learn about snowflakes and leaves and trees and all these different places where they have found the same shape, the same components, you feel more integrated into this world, less alone. And when you feel less alone, you become a more loving, supportive part of society. Sacred knowledge is going to change how you treat yourself. And when you change how you treat yourself, believe it or not, it changes everything about what other people do to you as well. Many of us are abused by others because we self-abuse so often. Sacred knowledge changes how well you manifest. Suddenly, it doesn't seem unreasonable to have all the best things. And it also don't feel expedient either. I ain't got to rush to get it. It doesn't matter if I get it or not. It's odd, right? But the way the universe works is that the more you enjoy just being who you are, appreciate everything about what you are, where you are, what you've been through, and just open that door, right? Then all kind of stuff start coming to you, all kind of stuff. Things that you've been working 30 years so hard for and they never felt like you was getting no closer, all of a sudden it becomes accessible. Because a universal law is like attracts like. Or I should say principle, a universal principle. Like attracts like. But it's true that opposites attract too. And so a more accurate thing is that opposites are always together. And like attracts like. Okay, that's a more accurate way to say it. But you integrate through adding meditation to your life, looking at spending enough time with yourself to look at whether your actions align with your true values and your goals. Whether you are a part of the problem or a part of the solution when it comes to humanity. You begin to care. You let yourself care about everything around you, but first, of course, yourself, and then everything around you. One thing that I highly suggest for everyone that's listening to this podcast is that you slow down with knowledge consumption and speed up with application. Every time you take in new knowledge, I don't care what it is, ask yourself, how can I use it? And sit down and create a way to integrate that knowledge into your life. That is what I did when I started this journey. And that is what led me to being who I am now. I wasn't in a rush to know more than everybody else. I was in a rush to know whether it was a real thing or not. I was committed to the scientific exploration and also the personal empowerment. I needed my life to change for real. And so I needed to know if this works. So I'm going to do as I'm learning, I'm going to do. so that I don't pile myself up with a whole bunch of stuff I can't use that doesn't apply to me. Keep that in mind. Become an integrative specialist. I'm integrating this knowledge. I'm assimilating that knowledge. I'm integrating this knowledge. I'm assimilating that knowledge. And I'm putting it in my life. I'm activating it. I'm doing the thing. I'm doing the thing. And now I can get more knowledge. I'm doing the thing. And then I get more knowledge and then I do the thing. Okay. Guys, thank you for listening. This has been another episode of Moments of Mindfulness. Be sure to follow us on YouTube. It is Moments of Mindfulness Podcast, and also MRain11 on YouTube. And I'm on TikTok at Magical Mystic, as well as Instagram. And that's at MRain Official or at Magical Mystic. And I look forward to seeing you guys again next time. Have a great one.